Nestled in the hills of Seoul, in a private room at Cheonggak, a sanctuary so exclusive it's reserved for Korea's top 1%, the silence was deafening. The gentle melodies of a traditional gaejeum were gone. Tonight, the only thing filling the air was a sickening cocktail, the metallic tang of fresh blood and the rich, savory aroma of pine mushroom stew. Across a pristine white tablecloth, a crimson stain bled outwards. Was it chili oil, or something far more sinister? Shards of a shattered jade ring glittered like fallen stars amidst the carnage. No desperate footsteps, no piercing screams could ever escape these soundproof walls. Inside, a single, trembling finger didn't dial for an ambulance. Instead, it pressed the stop button on a small, old-fashioned tape recorder. Click. That tiny sound was the only witness to the horrifying end of a tragedy. Our story begins 2 hours before the nightmare unfolded, as the setting sun cast a fiery glow over the elegant tiled roofs of Cheonggak. The two women who entered the courtyard were a study in contrasts, like oil and water, destined never to mix. The future mother-in-law, Kim Young-suk, was draped in a glossy, expensive fur coat, completely ignoring the warmth of the late spring evening. The designer handbag she clutched was worth more than an average person's yearly salary. Behind her walked the bride's mother, Park Jong-ja, dressed in a faded but immaculately clean traditional hanbok. Though she had ironed it to perfection, she couldn't hide the frayed edges of the worn fabric. In her hands, she held not a designer bag, but a heavy wooden box, carefully wrapped in a simple cloth. Before she even sat down, Young-suk's face soured. Her voice, sharp as broken glass, cut through the air as she called for a server. "What is this air? The humidity is all wrong. It's so damp, how can anyone be expected to sit here?" She pulled out a silk handkerchief and made a show of dusting off a perfectly clean cushion. Her eyes then settled on her future daughter-in-law, Ji-eun, scanning her from head to toe like an appraiser searching for flaws on a cheap trinket. A cruel smile twisted her red lips. "Well, at least our Ji-eun is neat and tidy. Not flashy like the girls these days. So, simple. It's a relief she doesn't look too provincial." It was a blatant insult, a poison dart. But Ji-eun could only bow her head and bite her lip, while her mother, Jong-ja, clenched her fists under the table, forcing a brittle smile. "Thank you for so graciously accepting my humble daughter," Jong-ja said, bowing her head so deeply it was a gesture of utter submission. It was a posture more fitting for a servant addressing her mistress than for equals meeting as family. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. 30 years ago, Jong-ja had worked as a live-in maid in Young-suk's mansion. Young-suk savored this memory, taking a slow sip of tea with a smirk. "As you know, my Minwoo was raised very delicately. Ji-eun will have to work hard to support him. He's quite sensitive." Just then, Minwoo adjusted his glasses and chimed in. "Mother, Ji-eun promised she would try her best. Isn't that right, Mother Jong-ja?" His tone was polite, but behind the lenses, his eyes were as cold and lifeless as a reptile's. With every new course that arrived, the conversation became more dangerous. Young-suk poked at an abalone dish with her chopsticks and brought up the wedding gifts, a tradition where the bride's family is expected to provide a significant financial tribute. "I hear $1 million is the standard dowry in Gangnam these days," she mused, "but we aren't so vulgar as to talk about money. We just expect a certain standard, a certain class. That shouldn't be too difficult, should it?" Clang. The sound of her chopsticks deliberately hitting the porcelain plate grated on Jong-ja's nerves. Young-suk gestured toward Jong-ja's threadbare hanbok. "They say you can tell a family's status by the clothes they wear. When Ji-eun joins our family, her side needs to uphold that status, so people don't gossip." The message was clear: if you can't pay the price for my son, don't even try. As the atmosphere grew toxic, Ji-eun began to tremble like a leaf. "Mother, please stop." she whispered, her voice barely audible. In that moment, her fiancé Minwoo's hand slid beneath the tablecloth. His fingers found her thigh and, with shocking force, twisted her skin in a vicious pinch. Ah! A small gasp of pain escaped Ji-eun's lips. Above the table, Minwoo wore a gentle, concerned smile as he dabbed his mouth with a napkin. "What's wrong, Ji-eun? Are you feeling unwell?" His voice was chillingly sweet. But Jong-ja saw it all. She saw the tears of pain welling in her daughter's eyes, and she saw the blue veins bulging on the back of Minwoo's hand. That was not a lover's touch. It was an act of absolute control, of silent, brutal violence. In that instant, something inside Jong-ja shifted. A cold fury, buried for 30 long years, surfaced in her eyes. Her hand trembled as she picked up her water glass, and her voice was low and steady when she spoke. "Madam Kim, do you happen to remember him? Your driver, Mr. Kim, from 30 years ago." At the sudden mention of the past, Young-suk's chopsticks froze midair. "What is this nonsense?" Jong-ja held her gaze. "He was fired, wasn't he? Falsely accused of being a thief. When in reality, it was your young son, Minwoo, who broke that priceless Goryo Celadon vase. You made an innocent man take the fall." The air in the room turned to ice. A tiny muscle twitched in Young-suk's jaw. "What did you just say?" This was no longer about money. It had become a psychological war between one who held a secret and one desperate to keep it buried. Jong-ja reached down and lifted the heavy wooden box onto the table. Thud. The sound was heavy, final. Young-suk sneered. "What is that pathetic box? Did you scrape together your spare change?" Jong-ja slowly, deliberately, began to untie the cloth. "These are my wedding gifts," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "I worked for a very, very long time to prepare them. I made sure they would befit your family's class." As the lid opened, Young-suk's eyes widened in disbelief. There were no jewels, no stacks of cash inside. Inside the box lay an old maternity journal, a DNA test result, and a yellowed piece of paper. Jong-ja unfolded the document. It was a confession, signed 30 years ago, where Young-suk had forced Jong-ja, her maid, to take the blame for a hit-and-run accident. And beneath that, a thick stack of photographs showing the bruises Minwoo had inflicted on Ji-eun. Jong-ja's voice was like ice. "This wedding is cancelled. But I will be compensated. For the life you destroyed all those years ago, and for the way your son has been destroying my daughter." Young-suk's face turned from ghost white to a blotchy, furious red. "How dare you?" Young-suk shrieked, losing all composure. To her, Jong-ja was a lesser being, someone who shouldn't even be allowed to meet her gaze. The idea that this woman now held her darkest secrets was unbearable. Young-suk grabbed the boiling pot of mushroom stew, ready to hurl it at Jong-ja. Hot broth splashed everywhere as screams erupted. But the one who truly exploded wasn't Young-suk. It was her son, Minwoo. In the moment his perfectly crafted image was shattered, the monster within was unleashed. "I'll kill you all," Minwoo roared, flipping the table and grabbing a fruit knife. The elegant dinner party instantly descended into a living hell. Young-suk rushed to stop her son, but his eyes were wild. He shoved his own mother away with brutal force. She stumbled backward, her head cracking against the wall as she collapsed, unconscious. Ignoring his fallen mother, Minwoo lunged for Jong-ja, his hands closing around her throat. "Die. Just die, you miserable old hag." Jong-ja's face began to turn purple, her breath catching in her lungs. And that's when Ji-eun, who had been frozen in the corner, saw the heavy ceramic vase on a display shelf. Ji-eun didn't hesitate. With trembling hands, she lifted the vase high and brought it down with all her might on the back of Minwoo's head. Crack! The sickening sound echoed as the ceramic shattered into 100 pieces. Minwoo's body went limp, slumping to the floor. An eerie quiet fell over the room, broken only by ragged, desperate breaths. On the floor lay Minwoo, bleeding from his head. Against the wall, Young-suk lay motionless. And standing over them was Ji-yoon, clutching a broken piece of the vase, her face a blank mask of shock. Jong-ja coughed, gasping for air, and looked toward the corner of the table. The little red light on the tape recorder was still blinking, a silent, impartial judge that had recorded every last second of the chaos. We are back in the present. When the police finally arrived, the scene was bizarrely composed. Minwoo was rushed to the hospital, unconscious, while his mother was taken into emergency surgery for a brain hemorrhage. At the station, Jong-ja gave her statement with chilling calm. My son-in-law's mother became agitated over the wedding gifts and threw the hot pot. Her son then pulled a knife. We were only defending ourselves. Beside her, Ji-yoon wept, but her tears were not of fear. They were tears of a strange, profound relief. The tape, filled with Minwoo's murderous threats and Young-suk's screams, was the perfect evidence. It was a clear case of self-defense. Months later, Jong-ja visited the hospital. Young-suk lay in a private suite. The brain damage had left her completely paralyzed, unable to speak, a prisoner in her own body. Her eyes, now vacant, could only stare at the ceiling. The powerful, commanding voice that once terrorized rooms was silenced forever. Jong-ja leaned close to Young-suk's bed, her lips almost touching her ear, and whispered, Madam Kim, was it really so difficult? All I ever wanted was for us to share a warm meal together. Young-suk's eyes darted back and forth in terror, but she could do nothing. She couldn't even scream. As Jong-ja left the room, she looked out the window at the steady rain. Her old bag felt weightless now. The burdens she had carried, 30 years of resentment, the guilt over her daughter's suffering, had all been washed away in the bloody chaos of that night at Cheonggak. But for Young-suk, Jong-ja's final whisper would echo in her mind for eternity. It was the cruelest truth of all. You can cover a scar with the most expensive makeup in the world, but you can never hide the rot underneath. The sound of the rain blended with the steady beep of the heart monitor, playing the final notes in a long, tragic story of revenge. A castle built with money and power is just a house of cards, ready to collapse when the hearts inside are a living hell. The story we shared tonight, the Cheonggak murder, is perhaps a tragic reflection of the twisted desires that fester in our society. On this rainy night, I hope your dinner table is filled with warmth and peace. Until next time, this has been Mystery True Crime Theater.